what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I have Vin Armani of the Vin Armani Show, and on the side, his job with Showtime, and he's got a lot of exciting stuff coming on. He's always a great guest whenever he joins my show, so we're looking forward to that. I just want to play a quick video that's going to introduce some of what we'll be talking about today, and is an interesting video for everybody to see if they haven't already. So I'll play that, and then my intro, and then Vin will be joining me, what you're all waiting for. Okay.
Why would buses line up in the same place and drop people off? Some of the people got on Black Lives Matter shirts, and some people got on KKK shirts. Now, when have you ever seen someone with a KKK shirt? Now, we know we see people with Black Lives Matter shirts, but when have you ever seen someone in the KKK shirt? And then why would, look, she said these buses were bumper to bumper, dropped everybody off and took off. All the buses were the same. It was well orchestrated. Now, hey, I don't want to get missing after this. All right? But I'm being honest on this, y'all. Back to back. Think now. Think. Share this. Think and share this video. This was all set up. You understand? The whole thing. First of all, you're not going to have on a KKK t-shirt, and you're not going to have on a Black Lives Matter t-shirt getting off the same brand of buses parked back to back. We're talking about bumper to bumper, not the same area, bumper to bumper. I'm glad that the woman who told me this is okay, because she was in that alley. It was not on the street where those people got hit. It was in an alley, and the only thing that stopped this guy was a parked car, not a car with somebody in it. It was a parked car. It was in an alley. She's seen the 87-year-old man get hurt, and the 70-year-old, they go to Charlottesville every day to eat lunch. This is what she's telling me now. And she's seen it. She said it's etched in her mind. I want to do a live interview with her probably tomorrow night. Etched in her mind. Back to back. 6 buses. Back to back. You telling me the KKK and Black Lives Matter are going to get on the same charter buses? Really? I might be some dumb, but I ain't plumb dumb. I was born at night, but it wasn't last night. Something is going on. Y'all better start asking questions. These folks getting riled up. Hey, y'all seen it the other day when I showed y'all how it looks outside? Let's go outside. It's not like that outside. You can see white and black getting along all the time, man. Go to the malls and stuff. Go to the stores in the area and all that. You see black and white folks very cordial and nice to each other. Somebody trying to make y'all divide for some reason. Now, I don't like Democrats. That is true. But I don't hate them. I mean, not that I can't sit down and talk to them. If you act ignorant, then I don't hate you because you're a Democrat. I hate you because you're an ignorant. But I don't like Democrats or the way that they move things, but I'm not going to bust you in your head. I'm not going to bust you in your head. No, I'm not. Because I might run into folks all the time and we talk. People you see here, we disagree with stuff. But we ain't going to bust each other in the head. We'll have a drink together and talk. Think about this, man. They're trying to make you all think that this world or that America is a certain way when it's not. Who is selling this, man? Who is selling this? And why are you buying it? Who's selling this and why are you buying it? 6 charter buses, same company, back to back. I wish somebody would have videos of this. But people, she said they came in quick, fast, and got out of there. They came in quick, same spot, not the same area. She said they were back to back. All these people got out. Some had on Black Lives Matter t-shirts. Some had on KKK t-shirts. Sound like a daggone scene from Jerry Springer where you just put people together and watch the reaction and see what happens. Why would you put a KKK person on the stage with a Black Lives Matter person and not think nothing was going to happen? Why would you do that unless you're looking for ratings or something to happen? Pay attention, y'all. Pay attention, man. I'm glad.
Okay, cue musical intro. Boy, that's brilliant. I do think some things in the world are real. Like you guys. You guys are real. Most of you. Most of my listeners, I think, are not just in my head. I think I have the metrics to prove it. You've taken a leap of faith today. What is that sound? And I apologize if you take offense. I'm a little offended myself. Welcome to our show. Welcome to the future. What it is, joining you live from sunny California. It's a beautiful day today. I'm your host, Nathan Stoltman. I bring you the news, the real news. And the biggest guests, not just spiritually, but also physically, at least in as much as he could kick my ass, it looks like. What's up, Vin? You can take yourself off mute. What's up, man?
What it is.
Great to have you here. Vin Armani, host of the Vin Armani Show on the Vin Armani channel.
Yes, sir.
That's great, man. As well as star of Showtime's Gigolos. Are you still? Is that show still on the air? Are you guys?
It's funny. They air it as though it was brand new episodes, like in the same slot. But we've got like 6 seasons of reruns. But supposedly, I don't know. Supposedly there's some top secret going on with them negotiating to do another season. But it's been so long since we filmed. I don't know if I really want to get back in shape. You know what I mean? I'll take the paycheck though.
Well, you're still working though, right? At the job.
Course,
so
yeah,
and you're in pretty good shape. Don't be modest.
No, the camera adds 10 pounds. The camera adds 10 pounds.
Oh man. So anyway, really glad to have you here. I'm going to be able to talk to you about a million things. So I'm excited about that. Anything you want to, you have a book. I should tell everybody.
Yes.
You have a book, and maybe you should talk about what it means, self-determination and stuff. Go ahead. You have the floor.
The book is called Self-Ownership, and the subtitle is The Foundation of Property and Morality. And the reason why I decided to write the book, I mean, everybody knows I'm a pretty big libertarian, anarchist. So I'd say I'm kind of anarcho-capitalist, agorist for the people who know what that is. But I'm for a stateless society. I'm an entrepreneur. I believe that the free market can solve a lot of problems. It's proven that it does. And so I wanted to write a book because what I felt was missing, there's a lot of great philosophy, great economics books, but what I felt was missing was I didn't think that the story had been begun far enough back. And I really wanted to go into, I think, especially, and the topics we're going to talk about today, one of the biggest misunderstandings, especially among young people, I find, between, in their 20s and 30s who are trying to figure out their political ideology, is the question of private property, who can own what. But there's not really out there. They don't even know, like if you ask them, well, what does the word ownership even mean? What can be owned? What can't be owned? And why? Like all of these things. And so that's basically, the book is a series of 31 essays that really explores that idea, explores individual freedom, explores where the ideas of private property come from, where the ideas of ethics and morality come from, and how we can, if we can very simply get down to this fine kernel of it, and from there we can expand out and we can get to the place where you and I are at, where we can discuss these higher issues. But I wanted to make something that was like the foundational bedrock. And so I'm only selling it's been a great experiment. The fans of the show have been amazing. I'm only selling the book for cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that's cool.
So,
man.
yeah, so I have this idea, and I coined the phrase in the book. And if people go to my Twitter profile or any of my profiles, they'll see this word crypto savage. So it's what I'm describing as what we are. We're this hidden culture that's underneath so much, right? So we have these views that are not the typical civilian views. They're the views of the savage, you know, but we walk around every day behaving as though we're participating in their culture, even though we really aren't. And so I was like, well, cryptocurrency that's the money of the crypto savage. Free money, right? Like free speech, not like free pizza. Free money that we can use without banks. And I was like, I come from a software development background. So I was like, what a cool project. Let me just build up this whole thing. I'll do the book myself. I'll self-publish the book. I'll sell it for cryptocurrency. I'll mail it myself. I'll get outside of the whole system, outside of the banks, outside of Amazon, outside of all of this, and have a little project to show it can be done. And it's gone gangbusters, man.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
my first book I put on Amazon, I make per copy, I make like, I don't know, probably 30% total. But in this case, I'm basically taking everything after my cost. So it's like,
Wow.
the amount that I have to sell is like 5 times less. The people have been amazing. VinArmani.com/self-ownership. People can go get the book. That's enough for the plug, dude. Let's
All right, no problem.
Meat.
You know what? But the one thing I want to ask you about that you brought up is agorism. I don't know if let you have the floor to give a full definition of exactly what that is, what it means to you, how we get there. You want to do that?
Yeah, I can. So, you know, I realized that there was some big problems with the government, as I'm sure everybody watching, that even the idea. So at first for me was there's some problems with the government. This was my evolution. There's some problems with the government. Then my solution was, oh, we need to fix them. Then as I got a little older, I was like, and especially being an entrepreneur, the thing was there's some problems with the government. And quite frankly, they're unfixable. They lie at the core of this whole state thing.
Right.
So I got into more reading about the philosophy of the state itself. The fact that it's just a group of people with a monopoly on violent coercion turned me into an anarchist, right? It made me say, I believe that there's a problem with the state. We need to move to a stateless society. That's a scary place for a lot of people to get to, right? And it's like, okay, well, if the state goes away today, like, what does that look like? Are we going to be safe? Is it going to be Mad Max and all this shit? And then I ran across several years ago this philosopher, Samuel Konkin, who described this idea called agorism. And the idea behind agorism is that through the use of gray and black markets, we just start taking freedom for ourselves. And we do that through the free market. And so instead of destroying the state, instead of trying to bring it down in some sort of armed rebellion, we just decide, and it's little things like, I'm going to grow a garden in my backyard against the permitting laws. I'm going to sell those fruits on the street corner without a permit. I'm going to do all of these very harmless things that show, look, I mean, marijuana is a prime example. Like if it's been agorist for a long time, then the state took it over. But these are the ways, pirate radio, these sorts of ideas to start expanding where we're at. And his idea, and I believe it to be true, is that eventually, if we take enough control, and that's what I'm doing sort of with the idea with this book, if we take enough control over our own lives, we will just decide to say no to the state. And we're going to get enough power under us and enough force to be able to protect ourselves. And we slowly whittle away the state over time. And for me, I think it's the most peaceful, the smartest, and quite frankly, it's just the most heroic way of going about making some changes. And I think it's really, it's ethically and morally and logically consistent. So that's agorism.
Wow, I agree on it way more than I thought I did. A lot of what I talk about, well, one of the things I've realized about myself spiritually and stuff too, is that I'm a sovereign human, and I nobody can take that from me except with my consent. Right. On a spiritual level, but as above, so below. It transcends, and when you start taking authority back to yourself, and it's crypto. I think we'll talk about. I'm really bullish on crypto now. Just for a few reasons, but maybe we'll talk about that later. We have a lot of cool stuff to address. That's interesting. There's a morality part of it too, right? As far as agorism,
it's all morality, right? Like that's at the end of the day. When I started writing this book, it's the core of the book, the core idea is exactly what you described as being a sovereign human. I think a lot of us are there, the idea of self-ownership. What I wanted to get into is like, let's take it out of the spiritual realm and let's take it to be like, here's how you logically explain that that's true and how you logically explain it to someone else. I mean, the basic core underneath it is this idea that no one can really argue with, that no one else can think your thoughts and no one else can feel your feelings, your sensations. And also that especially that no one else can feel your pain, that your pain belongs to you, your discomfort belongs to you. And that pain, that discomfort, along with your thoughts, you combine those together. That's what's at the core of the idea of labor, right? So we labor, we have this discomfort, we do this work, it's ours. And so therefore the labor belongs to us. Right. And since the labor belongs to us and the natural resources belong to no one, when you combine them together, you create property. And so it's like, here's this chain. And so that's what I wanted to try to build in this idea. And the ideas of agorism come out from that, because then you realize like, oh yeah, if I worked hard and I did this and I either made a wage for the labor or I created some property out of this labor, like this is mine.
Right.
If I can surely consent to giving you some. We can share, we can work together, we can cooperate. But for you to just say, no, we all the rest of us got together and we voted and we get to take some of your shit, it's like, there's a huge moral problem there. It's very morally inconsistent. And if we want to live in a world that is really the world with the most abundance is going to be the world that is the most morally consistent, where other people can trust each other. And I do think, Konkin was writing in the late 70s, early 80s, and I do think that he really predicted cryptocurrency. Because I believe that the blockchain and Bitcoin and all of this, I believe that was the missing link to allow this to actually possibly be real. I do think that is true, because before that, it's just like the bankers, and I'm sure we're going to talk about all of that, but the elite powers that be that have controlled the money supply. There was just no way around that, right? It's the mark of the beast. And I think that we have this little chance, if our generation decides to pick it up, that we could actually eke out some freedom out of this thing. But I think, as we're going to talk about, there's a lot of forces arrayed against us in trying to do that. Right?
Yeah, it's true. And I'll agree with you. I mean, I'm trying to live that principle, and I think the way the system, I agree. I love the current situation because order out of chaos. This whole system to me needs to come down. Exactly. So I agree with that, but I think the way we do it is kind of what you're saying, is just stop feeding it. Like for me, stop making, 6 figures and paying, a third of it in taxes, and cut myself off the grid. And actually the way I make money, it's not even income. I don't have to pay taxes or anything. I don't have any income. It's donations, but they're not considered that way. So I am disconnected, and I feed off of the system in ways. But I paid a lot into it that I didn't get back.
Well, that's it. It starved the beast, right? Like that's sort of where we're at. And I think, and that's why I saw, I coined a term crypto savage, but I was coining it by looking at people like ourselves and seeing that like, oh, wow, there is this culture that is building up to actually allow this. So maybe if we address it, if we really talk about it and we talk about the moral ideas behind it, and it's more than just like, oh, well, here's a new cool way of doing things, but like, no, there's some actually ideologically, I'm aligned, I'm philosophically aligned with this. This is the right thing to do. Then that's where I think that the change could come in. And look, people can make a lot of money at it, or at least can make a living at it. Mm-hmm. At the same time as they're aligned philosophically. And I think that's fucking amazing.
With crypto, yeah. And for me, I'm bullish the same way. And I just started thinking when I was talking to somebody about spiritual stuff and how we move forward and everything. And cryptocurrency came into my head because I got some finally, not much, but I just see, it's just once you use it a little bit, you see that it's just, you can transfer money just instantaneous. I mean, with no signing up for crap, nobody knowing where it came from. You can buy more of another kind and transfer, and nobody knows about it. And if I wanted to buy something from you, or you want to buy something from me, one of my listeners, it's like, it's invisible to everybody. Right. And this is, we can go right into crypto. I agree. It's something that actually people freak out when I talk about it, because the kind of show I do, I don't know if they do when you do, whether they call you a shill or, but that's what happens
It's
here
very
sometimes.
strange, but I know that those are people who have not used it and who don't understand it, and which is why I thought it was very important for me. I started out just wanting to just do like advanced copies of this book with cryptocurrency, but then after doing it, it occurred to me, because I started to get these messages from people and they were saying, well, this is my first ever cryptocurrency purchase, or I went and got Bitcoin just so that I could buy your book. And I was like, okay, this is very important, because to me it's the equivalent of somebody saying that was my first email.
Yeah.
And how that I think it will change people's lives even more. Or that was my first text message, or that was my first tweet, or my first Facebook post. It will change people's lives more than any of those other things combined. And so it's just like, but it's just to use it that first time, and once you do, you're like, okay, got it. I got it. I got it. I get it. Yes, it's amazing.
Right. Yeah, I bought some, and then I it's funny. We can talk about your feeling on we have different investment feelings. So I got some of that IOTA because I was given Bitcoin, as a donation. Mm-hmm. So it's in there. It doubled basically from the time I got the donation. So I took some of that, just a very small amount, and wanted to buy IOTA. It's kind of complicated. I had to sign up for an account on Bitfinex. But once I did that, transferring the currency, when you think about what it would take to go from one bank account to a bank account in Hong Kong, think about how much money you would pay for that, or how long you'd wait, or how much you'd have to sign up for. This was boom, sold some of it was LiteCoin I sent over, sold some of that, traded that on the market for Bitcoin. IOTA's priced in Bitcoin, bought, yada, yada, yada. And it was, and nobody knows it happened as far as I know. And that coin, could go up, could become a higher market cap than Bitcoin if the freaking technology is sound. But anything you get it in now, Bitcoin is like, people think it's priced too high or it's a bubble. I mean, more people are going to want to own it. That's the thing. It's going to be like the automobile replacing the horse and buggy, basically.
Well, there's a museum for, if people ever make it to Reno. I know it's like, Reno, why the fuck would I go to Reno? But I think a lot more people will be going now that Tesla's there and that Google's opened some stuff up there. It's going to become like the Silicon Valley's Detroit, right? It's trying to become like drone central up there. But there's and it's a cool place to just vacation. It's super, super cool. Tahoe and Reno, they're right next to each other. But Hera, the guy who has Hera's casinos and all that, there's a car museum there that was his personal collection. I think now it's called the something U.S. Car Museum. It's awesome to go and check out, and it's awesome to go and check out when you're thinking about where we're at in terms of cryptocurrency. It goes right to your point, because what he liked to collect was like either very early cars that they only made a few of, or things that were very specific new technological advances. Dude, there are electric cars in there from the 1800s. There are things that are running on steam. There are all these different, and you walk in and you suddenly realize like, oh shit. Yes, we all are walking around with cars, but like in the early days of cars, they had no idea even that it was going to be this internal combustion engine. Like, they were trying anything and everything, different seating config. Because you think about that, they didn't start out with steering wheels. They started out with tillers, bro. like on a boat, like a tiller. And there's cars in there with tillers, and you think like, oh wow, like we take the steering wheel for granted. Like, it didn't start out like that. And I think that that's where we're at with cryptocurrency. Like, Bitcoin in particular, I'm like, the chances of the end analysis that it being this Bitcoin, what you would want to call like Bitcoin legacy or Bitcoin classic, like, mind you, Litecoin is a fork of Bitcoin. There's now Bitcoin Cash, which was a fork. It looks like there's another fork coming up. So, and there's all these other cryptocurrencies. Like, the cryptocurrencies are here to stay. Whether or not it will be any one particular one, I think we're still in the tiller stage, bro. I think we're still in the Stanley Steamer, like running the car on steam stage. I think that what it looks like 20 years from now, we're going to look back on where we're at, as cool as it is. We're going to look back on where we're at and we're going to be like, oh, wasn't that funny? Remember Remember when we had to use the QR codes? Remember when we couldn't just like think it into somebody else's brain? You know
Right,
what I mean?
right. It is going to get
really do
easier.
think that's where it's at.
Yeah, it is going to get easier, and that's why that's why I got LiteCoin. Actually,
I love LiteCoin, by the way. It's super stable. Like in terms of a currency to use every day, it's stable and it's fast. I'm a huge. I don't speculate.
Right.
Right.
That's
so
what you said. Right.
I don't try to make money off it. And that's mainly because I make shit and I sell shit with cryptocurrency. So it's like I don't want the volatility. I just want the cash.
Right, exactly. You want it to be something where it's
exactly usable.
Well, they call it silver to Bitcoin gold, basically.
That's right.
And that's
and
the way.
Ethereum is like oil because it runs. It's the gas. It literally is called not a mining fee. It's called gas when you send it along with the Ethereum token. So Ethereum is sort of the gasoline. It's the fuel that runs all the other Ethereum tokens that are on that blockchain. So you've got silver, gold, and oil. And it's weird because their ecosystems work that way. It's really cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know about Ether. I stayed away from it. And I went to LiteCoin because I like the name and I like the idea.
Best currency. I like it.
Is it? Okay, cool. Yeah, the way I feel like Bitcoin is going to be is it'll always be. I feel like the legacy of it is that, and still so many people haven't invested in anything. They're going to put money in that. Yep. And I think it is going to be like gold to something like Litecoin silver, that people will still invest in it and use it as a store of wealth, but it won't be used for transactions.
Right now it's the only thing that you can make a lot of purchases in, right? So like Expedia takes, like I did this the other day. I did a Southwest flight, booked a hotel on Expedia. What have I done in the last couple weeks? Ate lunch at Outback.
No way.
Amazon bought my new office on Amazon. Went shopping at Whole Foods. All of these I did with Bitcoin. Wow. Now, mind you, in Expedia, I could pay directly with Bitcoin, and Overstock, you can pay with like 40 cryptocurrencies. But those other ones, I went to like gift.com or eGifter, and they take Bitcoin, and then I got a gift card. But it happens really, really fast. Like I did it from the time I walked into Whole Foods to when I walked out, I had it. They scanned it, and boom, it was gone.
Wow.
But most of those places only take Bitcoin.
Right.
So it's really becoming like the reserve currency. So what I do is I keep my money in Litecoin, and then I just shift it into Bitcoin as I need it. And then whatever the daily price is doesn't really matter all that much because I'm getting it at that sort of spot price. Right. I take a little bit of a hit on the transfer, but I'm able to do it fast enough. So it's like, I think Bitcoin's going to be there. It's the easiest coin to develop in if you're developing products for like payment processing and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. But look, it keeps forking.
Right.
Like we could see 10 different kind of versions of Bitcoin, and I think that's all good.
Yeah. I think so too. Well, and that's why. So I got an IOTA, and I don't recommend anybody put a lot of money in it. But the whole thing about it is it's a totally new technology that's supposedly more future. Specifically for transactions, no fees, yada, yada, yada. They had some wallet thing come in the news today or yesterday, which seems to be okay. But, and it's dangerous because it's brand new and it has a market cap, same as Litecoin already. Did you know that?
Some of those are going to blow up. Some of those are going to pop.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just all about which one of those it's going to be. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, now is the time for people to make money. It will stabilize itself over time.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I think it's something where like you make a $20 bet, and willing to lose it and just say, well, it could become, a lot.
I think that's the right approach to it, dude. There's this friend of mine, I couldn't believe he contacted me a couple months ago and he was telling me that he was going to take a bank loan out to invest in. He's got kids and stuff, and it's just like, that's why I'm like, it's as addictive because there's no barrier to entry. You go, like I signed my buddy up yesterday, helped him, we sat down at lunch, and in that time set him up with a Bittrex account, and he was already trading. By the time we got up from lunch, he had bought like 5 or 10 different smaller coins and whatnot. And it's just like, for those people who have who are susceptible to gambling, right, this is a very, very bad situation because it's just like the day trading was back in the day, right, except there's no barrier to entry, and to me that's scary. You know what I mean? I think people who have a problem, But if it's just like, take a couple $100 here and yeah, let's see what happens, let's hold it for a while, I think it's actually a smart play in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, the way I think of it and the way I recommend it is not short term really at all. That buy it with the intent of end use. That's what I think you should do, and not even think of it in terms of dollars or whatever. If you can do that and you can avoid watching the daily price, which I've been watching IOTA, I have to say, since I bought them.
Of course.
It's addictive. Becomes like a compulsion. Anyway, that's good. Well, we got our crypto stuff, I think, out of the way, right?
Good. I love it.
You want to talk about what's going on with Trump and the war and Bannon and stuff?
Yeah, we can do that.
What do you think? I did a show about Bannon and how he was going to turn on Trump. He comes out and everybody's like, he's going to be Trump's bulldog, and he's going. And meanwhile, he already turned on him after this Afghanistan thing. What do you think of the whole thing with Afghanistan and people surrounding him?
I knew Bannon was going down when he came out and he said there's a military option against North Korea is it's off the table. It cannot happen. Like, I was like, I tweeted immediately when that came out. I was like, somebody's about to hear you're fired. And like the next day or 2 days later, he was gone. I actually said back in March that I was expecting a war with North Korea in September. I still believe that. I still think there's going to be a false flag. I'll say it here. I do not think North Korea is off the table. Afghanistan is just, it's amazing. I was just talking to a friend of mine, actually. He's Hungarian, and he brought up Afghanistan too, and how ridiculous it is. I mean, you could go back to Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great couldn't take Afghanistan. Genghis Khan couldn't take, and Kublai Khan couldn't take Afghanistan. The British couldn't take Afghanistan. The Russians couldn't take Afghanistan. We still can't take Afghanistan. It's like, fuck, this is the dumbest, but I don't think it's a coincidence. And I've been saying this. For me, this doesn't even seem like a conspiracy theory. This just seems like obvious when you look at it. But it's like, here we are in Afghanistan. The Taliban had almost completely wiped out the poppy crop. Almost completely. They had almost eradicated it. We take out the Taliban. Afghanistan goes beyond what it's ever produced in terms of opium production. And then all of a sudden, we have an opioid crisis. Mm-hmm. And it's like, do you really believe that a glut on the opium market, the worldwide opium market, and a corresponding opioid crisis in the West, do people really believe that those two are not connected, that they're just a coincidence? It's absolutely impossible. And so, what a lot of people are saying is that they'll get hooked on the opioids, right? They'll get hooked on the prescription opioids. And then, because it's so expensive, they go to the heroin.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So this whole thing was a setup to create heroin addicts. And believe me, the pharmaceutical companies, if people really think that the opium gum shipments, it's all the legal shit comes from Tasmania, supposedly. If people really believe that these shipments are that tightly monitored and that the people who are running these things are not tied in with intelligence agencies, you're on crack. Because we already know the CIA, Iran-Contra from back in the day, running guns, running fucking cocaine into South Central, starting crack. Like, we know that this is what they do. Yeah. We know that this is a means of funding black ops.
Yeah.
And we're guarding the poppy fields. So that's all I see. What I see when he's talking about we're not leaving Afghanistan is, how can we leave Afghanistan? It's funny because out the other side of his mouth, he's like, we've got to tackle this opioid crisis. Right. We're going to go and make sure that there's more production than ever of opium. And it's like, bro, what the fuck?
Yeah, he doesn't care about it. And what he did on the opioid thing was messed up too, because he didn't declare it a national emergency. Right. And then he got some backlash. And so the next day he comes out and declares it a national emergency. And
but it's a national emergency. What are you going to do? You're going to shut down all the pain clinics? Are you really going to start going after all these doctors that are making all these prescriptions, even though they know what's going on? Like, is he really going to do that? And the answer is no.
No, I don't think so. And I tell you, I don't. Well, I talk about it on my show, but I was, I had a dependency on painkillers and opioids and benzos too. But it's because they're easy to get.
Right.
I bought them off the street personally, but they're in hundreds. And somebody's getting those from somewhere. And then, and it's expensive buying pills. And because you start out taking pills because you're like, oh, these are okay. They're, medical. And then, but you don't think heroin's okay. But then you figure out, oh, it's the same thing. And it's a lot cheaper to get it off the street.
Cheaper. And once you've got that dependency, bro, and it really is a dependency. Like, that's what people don't understand, the chemical sort of connection with the neurotransmitters and with opium. It's like, this is a very ancient connection that, I mean, that was opium for most of human history, was like our only medicine in a lot of ways. Like, that was the go-to primary like medicine. It was considered a holy plant. And so we've evolved along with it the same way that we've evolved with cannabis, you know what I mean? And so the people don't understand that once you start playing around with those neurotransmitters and you start playing around with those receptors, the dependency is real. It's absolutely real, and it's horrifying.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Well, I had to explain to people what it's like because realizing how I thought then and realizing now how those thoughts didn't make sense. They weren't reasonable thoughts that I would normally have. I realized, it's because these things, when you don't have them, you think you're going to die if you don't get more. Basically, that's what your brain is telling you. If you don't have more of this, you're going to die. It's just like food at that point. And then, your lizard brain takes over your thoughts, and whatever you do anything to justify doing more or whatever it is. And it's like being possessed, almost. So yeah, it's a terrible thing. And my mom was prescribed them and stuff, and she thought that and they don't work for pain. That's the thing. They don't work. They make it worse.
Well, they're not even really for pain, right? They don't take the pain away. They just make you not give a shit about it.
Right.
And that's the jacked up part. But look, I think that used in the traditional way, and I think that's the true problem with this opioid. What we've got with this opioid crisis is opium used in the traditional way, whether it was the tar dissolved in alcohol, so you get something like laudanum, or smoked opium, is much milder in terms of the hold that it takes than are any of these pills that are, quite frankly, I mean, and you think this is just market forces. Of course, these pills are engineered to be habit forming. Right. Of course, these pills are engineered to grab you and take hold, because the more addicted you are, the more profits the pharmaceutical companies have. Like, this should not be surprising, or this should, like, for anybody to even think that it's not that, to me, is crazy.
Yeah.
Because it's just logic. It's completely logical.
And that's what I learned, is that they want us, everything medicine is to keep us dependent on it, whether it's blood pressure medicine or diabetes medicine or whatever it is. It's to get you on it and then have you take it for the rest of your life, basically, and feel like you need it. So it's no surprise at all. I mean, these companies, they've known for a long time that it doesn't help pain long term. Of course. And it's absolutely criminal. It is absolutely criminal, because a lot of people with chronic pain take it thinking that, their doctor says they should keep taking it and it'll ease the pain. And it does. It makes you feel better, but you don't realize that you're actually feeling worse over time because of this damn stuff you're taking, and you need more and more. Man, it's just awful. And kicking it, man, it's awful.
Well, have you heard of Ibogaine?
Yes. But tell me, is it something you can get off it with? Yeah. A hallucinogen?
Yes. So it's kind of like the male analog in terms of, like, on a spiritual sense, on a metaphorical sense. They say ayahuasca is a very female spirit. So ayahuasca is from the Amazon. Ibogaine is actually from Africa, and it's been used there for a very long time. It's a psychedelic, super strong. And iboga, which is iboga is the plant. Ibogaine is the actual substance. But several people that I know have used it to kick. It's particularly good for opioid addiction, but any addiction, and it's like 2 days.
Wow. Yeah.
2 days. It's brutal. It's
Hmm.
brutal. Like you're taking a very strong hallucinogen, but it rewires your brain, and it's becoming more and more popular. But even that, it's funny to see that. Yeah, we're way more again. We want to, not we, but certainly the federal government and people are like, oh, we need to crack down on ayahuasca now. We need to crack down on ibogaine. We need to crack down on all the things that are actual medicine.
Right. All the things that are helping us. It's all the things that would make us better.
That's right.
We can't have. I'm going to do a show tomorrow on the cure for cancer. This thing that might be the cure for cancer, HIV, like herpes, chronic fatigue that's being suppressed right now. And I think
they're out there,
cure.
bro.
There's stuff out there. Yeah.
They are absolutely out there. One of my, I don't know if you know much about like the genesis of MDMA, of ecstasy, but it's one of my, I've been obsessed with this guy, Alexander Shulgin, who sort of rediscovered MDMA. He was basically a brilliant chemist. He was working for Merck. He developed some crazy like blood pressure thing that they ended up making just billions off of. And so they were like, hey, go back home to Santa Barbara, Russian guy, his wife's a psychiatrist. Go back to Santa Barbara, or Santa Cruz, I believe it was Santa Barbara. We'll build out your a lab for you, and you can study whatever you want. And he went back through the archives, the Merck archives, just looking for cool things, and ran across basically like in the 1800s, like in 1888, they had synthesized MDMA, ecstasy,
Interesting.
right? Molly. They had synthesized it, and he picked it up and he made, I think, 43 variations of it, wrote about it. It's a book called PiCal. It's like phenylethylenes I have known and loved. He tells the story of him and his friends, and they tested all of these things. But he's basically the one who rediscovered it and brought it to market. And his wife was using it as couples therapy.
Right.
And she was healing all of these couples. She was a psychologist using this. And so you see, like, these are real medicines that people develop. He was working for the pharmaceutical companies, but it could never go into the pharmaceutical companies because what the fuck do we do with this?
It works.
Right? It just makes people happier. It makes people more compassionate. That we can heal relationships with it. Nah, fuck that. Let's give them the shit that they'll get addicted to.
Yeah. That's
what the key is. It's a business. They want you to keep coming back, and it goes hand in hand with, the medical system. This is why I'm, it's not a conspiracy theory, because it's clear that it's a conspiracy. And if you know anything about economics and you just look at market forces, you're like, it has to be. Mm-hmm. It has to be, because there's so much money.
Right.
And it goes all the way to the top. And clearly that's what we're seeing in Afghanistan. It's all about the poppies, man. What the fuck else do they have over there?
Well, minerals, apparently. I saw something about that.
It's going to be so hard to mine anything with the resistance that's there. The difference with the poppies is that it's the locals that do it. And so, the locals get the stuff, put together the poppies, and it doesn't take a lot of capital resources for them to do that. And then they ship them to the marketplace, and they can secure the marketplace. They don't need to secure the farms, but man, I know lithium is there for sure. Mm-hmm. Big lithium deposits. They really think they're going to secure a lithium mine and stop whatever Taliban and local tribal forces from killing off all the miners? Not going to happen, bro.
Well, what about location? Because he brought in Pakistan and India. Right. They were probably like, oh, great.
Right.
India was probably thinking.
They all want a chunk. Everybody wants a piece. I mean, it is a strategic location, obviously. I think part of it is just to surround Iran.
And Pakistan, it sounds like, too.
Right. To have those bases there is, of course, very, very important. But I mean, I honestly believe that the first flashpoint is North Korea. I do believe that it's too important. A lot of people don't realize North Korea borders both Russia and China.
Right.
And Vladivostok, which is Russia's only Pacific warm weather port, so meaning that isn't frozen over, that they can get in and out of, which is where the Pacific Fleet of Russia is based. If you look at the border of North Korea, if you pull out a map, Google Maps, and border of North Korea and Vladivostok, you can damn near see Vladivostok.
I'll show you guys the map.
You can damn near see the Russian Pacific Fleet from the coast of North Korea. And so you got to think like that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
That's never talked about in the news.
No.
You know, yes, China's their trading partner, but it's like, dude, the Russian Pacific Fleet is sitting within 50 miles, I believe it is, 60 miles.
Yeah, it's right here. I'm showing it on the map for people. It's like right next to North Korea. You can
Right
see
there.
it probably. You could probably just see it from there. It's pretty. You know what's funny is I thought North Korea was kind of a joke and that it was just being used as a chess piece. But Trump really wants to take over North Korea,
That's right.
and he just proposed sanctions on. Russia and China for supporting North Korea.
That's right.
And he wants to starve out North Korea completely, it sounds like.
Oh, well, but that's been tried, dude. Like that, I think that the real problem with North Korea is that they've weathered all these storms. People don't realize, like, there was during this dude's father, right? During Kim Jong-il's reign, there was quite a famine, and they came out of it. Like, they're eating now. It's not like what it used to be. Like,
Right.
Not only are they eating, but they're starting to develop. Like, this guy, this Kim Jong-un has turned out to be actually, as far as murderous dictators go, he's turned out to be a pretty good one.
Interesting.
And that's the real worry. The real worry is there are no more sanctions left to put against them. I think it goes back to what we were talking about in terms of agorism, right? It's that if you say I am just going to simply refuse to use your system, right? So if we say, all these people getting their YouTube demonetized and their Patreon taken away and all of this,
Right.
that's been part of the impetus for me to be like, well, you know what? No, I'm going to just say, no, there's no YouTube, there's no Patreon. Like, I'm starting to put my stuff on IPFS, which is the Interplanetary File System, which is kind of like the Bitcoin of file storage, uncensorable, worldwide, all of this. It's like, if you start there, then who gives a shit what YouTube does?
Right.
If you start and you hold all your assets in cryptocurrency and you're using Bitcoin ATMs to pull out cash when you need it, who gives a fuck what the bank does? Who gives a fuck what the IRS says? Because the only thing they could do is seize your assets in a bank.
Right.
They can't seize your assets on the blockchain. And that's pretty much where North Korea is at. And that's what makes them so dangerous is they're like, no, we can't trade anyway. So everything that we're doing internally. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing about this idea of why them being able to launch an intercontinental ballistic missile, that it's like, you haven't allowed us to trade. You haven't allowed us to gain any technology coming in here. You haven't allowed food coming in. You haven't allowed us to do shit. And yet we're launching an ICBM. That should scare the powers that be, because it's like, yo, give these guys 20 years.
Right. Right.
Give them 20 years and like they'll actually be a world power, because they'll be completely self-sufficient in a way that no other country is. Because every other country, you could pull the levers of sanctions, right? The international regime, you could pull the lever, but not with those guys.
Well, it's what we didn't like about Syria, and it's what we don't like about, it's what we didn't like about Libya.
Iraq.
Iraq, same thing.
to
No central
a great
banks.
degree. I mean, they're getting back into the international community, but that's what it really is about. That it's like, and it's totally classic too, because it does go back to like, if you like the movie 300, right? At the very beginning, when the dude comes from the Persian Empire and he's like offering all of these things. When you don't take what the devil offers, that's what pisses the devil off.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on in this case. Like, you've just got them saying, no, we're not going to take it. And so they've got to go.
Yeah.
They've got to go, bro.
Yeah. It's funny. It's true. They don't like that. It's why they don't like me or you on YouTube and stuff either. The whole thing you said about the demonetization is, I saw it coming. I mean, I take donations and stuff on Patreon. I don't think they're going to shut that down. It'd be hard to do that.
Well, they took Lauren Southern's Patreon away.
You know what though? Those alt-right guys, I don't know if I trust.
I mean, it's very different.
Trust
it's very different from you, right? It's very different from you or I. But the question is it different? Because it's only different now. Right. I think once people realize that they have the power, like, first they take out the most egregious individuals.
Right.
But those people still have a job. It's like, well, my job is to take people out, and I already took out all the egregious people. So now what the fuck do I do? It's like the cops, right? We live in a society that is so peaceful as compared to like, is anybody really, really worried about walking around and getting murdered in the middle of the day? But in Las Vegas, that did happen like 200 years ago. This was the Wild West. Like that really did happen. You might get in a fight with somebody over something and get shot out in front of a bar. Like that really did fucking happen. But the sheriffs here don't have to deal with that anymore. So what do? They're pulling people over for speeding tickets. So, you and I are the equivalent of a lot more than a speeding ticket, if you think about it in that way. So it's scary to watch. And that's for me, that's why I'm like, okay, I'm starting to, of course I still use YouTube. Facebook had been blocking my live stream for a couple of weeks, and we managed to get it back on. Yeah,
I can't imagine blocking your show. I know they do mine, but I'm off Facebook.
We're on Activist Post, right? So we broadcast on Activist Post Facebook. They've got 550,000, people. Well, you know that you were broadcasting on there too.
Yeah,
and you know that they were being throttled.
Were they?
They were being throttled that whole time.
Oh, that's why we couldn't get views on there. I couldn't get views to save my life.
That's right.
So that's why I quit. I was like, well, nobody watches. They watch for like 9 seconds or something.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they're throttling it. Facebook is throttling it.
Huh. Crazy.
So for us, it's more a matter of staying on the platform, right? For us, honestly, what I didn't even realize is the vast majority of our, I should say, listenership actually comes through our podcast, which is crazy. Like I wasn't even paying attention to our podcast. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, the podcast is like killing everything. Weird, I guess, because we've had on some big podcasting guests, and so people just subscribe. But it's like, for me, it's very important to stay on all those platforms. But now, like I say, I'm trying to move off onto the uncensorable ones, onto IPFS, DTube. I don't know if you saw DTube.video, which is a connection with like Steemit and IPFS. That's interesting too. There's a lot of these things, man. But yeah, this is all coming, and I think when the war starts, those of us who are anti-war, believe me, we're going to be the first targets.
Yeah, you think so? Yeah. Well, and I've been targeted in such crazy ways. I mean, but through harassment and gang stalking and stuff. I found out yesterday this guy that was gang stalking me because of exposing this operation on YouTube. They had called my dad on his cell phone, telling him to stop me from doing what I was doing. They sent letters to my house, to my dad, saying I was breaking the law. Now I find out the guy emailed my psychiatrist.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, that's how much they don't like me.
Well, I mean, that is stalking, bro.
It is. Gang stalking. No, I mean, seriously. And then they got my channel shut down, eventually. Yeah, I mean, it's bad, man. They don't want you on there, but they don't use orthodox techniques. They don't just use flagging you or what have you. It's bad. It's really bad.
Look, dude, I think maybe that brings us into the whole thing that was the lead-in with the video that you started out at the beginning of the show, because I think it's all coming from the same place, man.
Do you?
I think that all of this is coming from the same place. I mean, you want to talk about that, like the whole color revolution thing and all that?
Sure. Yeah. I'm really interested. Yeah. I mean, to me, I was starting to get skeptical of all these YouTube channels and stuff. And I've been to those rallies, and I'm going to two this weekend in the Bay Area. I'm going to have to raise money for it. But yeah, it's right in the Bay Area. There's two of these free speech / white supremacist events. One of them back in Berkeley, where I've already been twice.
That's going to be a problem.
Yeah. So anyway, but they're agents provocateurs. I mean, it's infiltrators. You can see it, and that's what I want to go do, is try to catch stuff like what that guy was talking about and show people, look, this isn't real people. Maybe try to talk to people and stuff, but it's like what that guy said. I believe it. And I've seen it with my own eyes. Well,
have you heard Soros talk about his theory of reflexivity, or have you ever read anything he's written about it?
Okay. Tell me.
So we covered this on the show. People could probably go back if they want to go to vinarmani.com and search Soros. They'll probably see some clips of this. Showed this back months ago when it was with Trump, because it laid in. But Soros has been very open over the years. He fancies himself a philosopher, actually. That's what a lot of people don't know about George Soros, that he attributes his success in business to this philosophy that he developed when he was still in school, and still talks about it and is proud to talk about. And you could, if you look up Soros' theory of reflexivity, you'll see all the places where he's discussed it. Basically, his idea, and this is where how he says he's made all of his money, is that he says, he uses an example. It's sort of like a feedback loop, that he says, look, you don't need a lot of noise to create an incredibly loud feedback loop if you position the microphone and the speaker in a place where the initial little, it could just be that. And anybody who knows anything about audio, that with a correctly placed mic and speaker is going to create like pretty soon it's just going to take over the whole thing, because every time it bounces back, it reflects itself plus more. Feedback loop.
Got it.
So his whole idea, and this is his theory of reflexivity, is that he says these human actions, whether it's markets, whether it's politics, whatever, that you can make these huge impacts if you just create reflexive situations.
Right.
And so it's not that everything that happens at all of these rallies is being planned, because you don't even need that much, right? You only need a very small amount on either side, as you say, that are creating that feedback loop, and then the populace will take it over, as you've seen.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is underneath it? Like, what do you want underneath it? And what you want underneath it is, what you'll notice about these people, and I think is very important, is they don't stand for anything.
Right.
They're standing against, right? These people who are being described as white supremacists, when you listen to their chants, when you see what they're talking about, they're not. They're against. They're against immigrants. They're against the removal of statues. They're against, everything is against. They're against Jews, if it is that. They're against the European culture being taken away. And if you look at the other side, they're literally Antifa, right? It's anti-fascist. They're like, but what do you stand for? They don't stand for anything. And so the whole idea is to have these two sides, neither one of them having an ideology, just wants to see the other side crushed. And then when you crush the other side, you could pretty much institute whatever you want at that point.
Right.
Because you're the hero. You're the winner. And that's the core of a color revolution. Like, every time there's one of these color revolutions, whether it's the Orange Revolution, you know, it really, the Russians started it. It was really the Bolsheviks, the Red Army versus the White Army, right? Colors,
Right,
again.
right.
The Rose Revolution, the Arab Spring, all of these, you notice they're out there, they're against. And what they wind up with is always worse.
Right.
Right? The CIA did this with Mossadegh, with planning that out, getting Mossadegh in Iran removed and the Shah put in. And then the Iranians came back, and the Ayatollahs came back and did it themselves using the same playbook. And it was like, we're against the Shah, we're against the Shah, we're against the Shah. And what did they end up with? They ended up with a theocracy. Every time it's worse. It's more totalitarian.
Right.
And that's what people don't understand, is that it's like, query any one of these people about what their political philosophy is. They have none.
Right.
That's the scariest part about this. They have no political philosophy. And what your political philosophy always ends up with, unfortunately, when you have no political philosophy, is socialism. You know, Mussolini started out as a socialist. Then he created fascism. The Nazis, National Socialists. That's what Nazi stands for, socialism, right? The Bolsheviks, socialists. Like, go down the line, it's all about socialism. And what socialism is about is taking away private property, not respecting property rights, taking shit from somebody else because you create an enemy. So it's like, we're going to beat them. Now let's take their shit.
Right. Centralized power.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole plan. And at this point, I don't think Soros is really in it for anything other than proving that his theory works. I think it's pure arrogance on his part.
You think he's feeding a lot of this, both sides? Do you think
100%?
Yeah.
I know that he's financially backing quite a bit. Particularly, you can see it really obviously with the people on the left. I know a lot of the people who are organizing on the right, that those are plants, but the people on the parties that are on the left-hand side, right? A lot of the communist parties, the socialist parties, we've covered this a lot on the show. The people who are backing Antifa, who are really just the armed, provocative wing of that, a lot of that has been backed with Soros money. That's proven.
Yeah.
Every time you see those signs that show up like with 1 day's notice and they're perfectly printed and all of that in multiple cities, those are the Soros signs, right? That's the Soros money.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's backing for sure one side. Now, the question is he backing the other side? Wouldn't surprise me. If he's not, he's at least the ideological forefather and godfather of, because it's not like I say, it's not like this theory of reflexivity is some sort of a mystery. This is available for anybody with money to use. It's the same way with Saul Alinsky and the rules for radicals. It's like once you have the tactic, who knows who it is and who cares, but they're all after the same thing.
Right.
They're all after divide the population, put in more totalitarian control to take people's shit. That's it. They don't care whose they take.
Yeah, in some
They'll
senses,
take anybody's shit.
They just want to create chaos too.
That's
I mean, really. I don't know if one side is going to win between these two sides. And
no. Even if you win, you lose.
Right.
Even if you win, I think going back and looking at the revolution, I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peterson, and because of him, I started reading the Gulag Archipelago, and I read Volume 1. And the thing that becomes very, very clear when you read Solzhenitsyn describing the lead up, basically from the revolution, and he was a communist who then got thrown in the Gulag, right, for writing a letter, basically, and he got 20 years in this terrible. I mean, it's a horrifying story, and it's all true. But what you see leading up is that the Bolsheviks were really the people at the top who ended up in control. It was a tiny percentage of the people who kind of fought that revolution. And the first thing that they did after they won, after they swept the White Army out, is they went and they got the individualists, they went and got the anarchists, they went and got all the people who had fought on their side, and they either imprisoned them or killed them. So that's what it is. It's like, if you're gonna win, you're still gonna lose, because are you in charge? No. Well, then the psychopaths in charge will be just as happy to run over you. You're going to be their next target because you don't maybe agree. Right. You agreed that, like, yeah, the Nazis fucking suck. The white supremacists fucking suck. And I think even a lot of people who would consider themselves alt-right think that the white supremacists suck.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I've talked to them.
99.9% of people do. Like, that's such a small group of the people who are even involved in the organizing, right? And so, yes, you agree that those people suck, but it's not about those people sucking. It's about building up a movement to crush them and then to crush people within the movement itself.
Well, and yes.
You go to Venezuela. Maduro just kicked out his attorney general recently. She had to flee on a motorcycle. This is big news. She was fleeing when they put in the new parliamentary group. You see Saddam Hussein when he took over, and then he took over in the parliament and he started calling people out to be murdered.
Yeah.
And those were the people who had put him into power. But they just didn't agree with all of the policies that he wanted. And it's like, dude, you don't win.
Right.
You don't win. You lose because you put a psychopath in power. That psychopath doesn't give a shit about you. You're just a tool. And as soon as they're done with you, bam, you're gone.
Well, think about Donald Trump, Think about all the stuff he ran on and how he's basically just stabbing everybody who supported him now is getting shit on, basically. I mean, he's saying that everything he said didn't mean anything. And it was a manufactured, there was some reflexivity to the way his campaign was run too.
Hugely. Yes,
Hugely.
absolutely.
It was a total psychological operation. And yeah, just like you said, he's turning around and going after those same people. And one of the things also is Antifa's fighting against free speech, and they're fighting to scrub history, and they don't realize what they're doing and that it's affecting them, that those are bad things.
This is what happens when you don't teach history.
Right.
This has been built up, and whether it's on purpose and it's from on high, or whether this is just the nature of what happens when you fuck up an educational system, right? Because America, this is what a lot of people don't know, is that this country has steadily declined in terms of its intelligence. The best-selling book in the year 1776 in the colonies in the United States, when the Declaration of Independence was written, the best-selling book was Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Now, I don't know if you've ever read Thomas Paine's Common Sense, but this is not easy reading. This is not fucking Twilight. This is not Harry Potter. But yet, it had sold enough copies as compared to the population that 1 in 4 people had a copy of this book. And that means that this was rural farmers, average people, every day on the streets who had this thing. Where did they learn to read? Where did they become literate? Where did they learn math? Which obviously they had. I mean, it was a big merchant society that they had to take care of taking their shit to market. They had to figure out the yields and the profit and getting loans and all of this. The average person had to. Where did they figure that out? Little country schools, learning from their parents, all of this, no public education system. Now we're sitting in a place where people are educated by the government and they don't even understand the First Amendment of the Constitution. That should blow people away, and it should say everything that you need to know, that like it's over. Like it's over.
You mean the public, you mean the system. Is that
It's
what you
done.
mean when you say it's done?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's done.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
think so, too.
you don't come back from that.
Right. It's all going to fall apart. And it's going to be for many reasons. But one of them is hopefully people will realize that it was unacceptable to begin with. You know, when they start thinking, oh, public schools now, tuition's too high or whatever. Man, teach your kids at home. You know,
Well, people want control, right? There's some group of people who always want control. And history moves in these cycles that it's like you start out very free. You create a society that's very prosperous, that has a lot of freedom, that has free thinking people. You do a lot of innovation. And within that society, as it gains more and more abundance, there you get more people, which means you get a higher concentration of psychopaths. Those psychopaths go straight to trying to control shit. Governments get created, they get more totalitarian, you get more war, you get more taxation, you get people living so much worse. And then eventually the society collapses because of that.
right.
And we are in a decadent time. We are in the time that is pre-collapse. And the fact that you see these kids who are out there with masks around their faces in all black, the reason why they're destroying property, the reason why they're marching around, pulling down statues and chanting what they're chanting and hitting people, I truly believe that it's because they have absolutely no like historical reference. They think that like they're the first people on the face of the earth to ever think the things that they're thinking, to ever say the things that they're saying, and no one's telling them that they're wrong.
Right.
Who would tell them that they're wrong?
Their parent, I don't know.
But we don't do that. Like
Right.
we segregated. There used to be a time, or that, well, this always happens in every decadent society, that you separate by age, right? Think of how age separated our society is, right? That it used to be like if you were a man and you were, let's say, 14 years old, you spent a lot of time around men your father's age. You probably spent a lot of time around men your grandfather's age. They were teaching you things. They were telling you things. This is from back to the beginning of time. Same thing goes with women, man. It's like, yeah, the women are all going to go 3, 4, 5 generations. They're all going to go. They're going to go up and do the washing. They're going to sit around. They're going to talk. They're going to cook together. They're going to learn the stories. They're going to do all of this. That's how you don't have what we have.
Right. It's true.
But when you age separate, of course, if I'm sitting here, if I'm 17 years old and all I ever talk to are 17-year-olds, of course it sounds like the first time anybody's ever said this. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you think social media then has to do with that? Like where is this age correction coming from? Is it an echo chamber that because of the way we can communicate?
I think it starts with school.
Yeah,
Right, I think
right.
that it
Because
all
people
starts
are
with school.
separated from their family immediately, and
Well, dude, look,
and
you're even separated. You're separated by age in your classes, right?
right,
When they started out with this shit and they had the little red schoolhouse, every age was in the same room,
right,
and the older students taught the younger students. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they cared for them and watched out for them. And the teacher would start up here with the older students, and then you teach them on the way down. And this is a traditional way of teaching that has been around for thousands and thousands of years. This whole experiment with we're going to sit you with the same group of people for 12 years in a concentration camp environment where you're moving around with bells and shit. If you want to see what that produces, like here it is. Like here's the proof.
Right.
Here's the proof.
Yeah.
That's what it produces. Because there's no adults. There's no adults out there.
Yeah.
There's no parents out there at these fucking rallies. Nobody who's a parent is going to take off from work or is going to go and risk putting themselves in danger or going to jail to go and do for what? What?
Right. You're right. It is a totally youth-oriented thing. I mean,
that's it.
Interesting. Yeah. The whole thing with, the whole system from feminism to everything else was about that kind of thing, is taking your kids away from you, basically, and giving them to other people and not having any kind of community. You know, do you believe, since you brought up the Constitution, there are some people who think rip up everything? I think the Constitution's pretty good, personally.
I say rip up the Constitution.
You do?
Right? But not the Bill of Rights. Because the Bill of Rights that's why it's an addendum to the Constitution, that the Bill of Rights really has and they say it quite clearly in the Ninth Amendment, which is the one that nobody really knows about. They basically say the Ninth Amendment essentially says, just because we haven't written down any rights, a particular right, doesn't mean that you don't have it. Like, we've just enumerated some of the rights, but just because they're not written here doesn't mean that you don't have it. So the idea with the writing of the Bill of Rights was this idea that, like, we need to actually write some of these things down that were here way before government. Like, this is the foundation of what it is to be human. And I think that if we were to remove the Bill of Rights, the Bill of Rights is actually a very spiritual it's a very spiritual document. If you look into it, it's very metaphysical in terms of what these guys were trying to get at. That First Amendment, man, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, freedom of religion.
Right.
They're all really tied to each other, but it's this idea of, it's not just about government. It's about if a society values those things. And then you have the society's allowed to stay armed. That's the Second Amendment, right? The Third and Fourth Amendments, we're talking about private property. If you have all of those things, and if you have a society that values those, you almost don't need a constitution.
Yeah.
If people in a society value others' free speech, their right to assemble, their right to be safe in their papers, their right to a trial, their right to bear arms, like, if everybody's respecting that in a society, what do you even need a government for? Like,
right.
That's it. Like, that's just pure respect of other people.
Well, that goes back to something, and maybe another thing, something I saw you say on your show, which I kind of came into. But one of the things I used to say is that in order for any new system to work, agorism or whatever, and a lot of them could work if people changed. But that's what's really required, because if people don't change the way they think, then we have no hope, basically. So it was interesting what you and your what do you call it? Your producer. Yeah. It was interesting. It was interesting that you guys had a conversation where you both said that you came to some kind of place within the last couple weeks. For me, it happened about a month ago, where all of a sudden, things were, I reached some sort of henosis or something. And so anyway, both of those ideas go together for me. What do you think? Do you think something's happening? People are talking about a shift, things are going on here.
There's something energetically going on, bro. Like, I have no doubt about it. I'm really seeing it. People are so receptive to these ideas. But I do believe that cultures move in cycles. I've talked about this a lot. I've written about it a lot. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm a firm believer that we don't fully understand this cycle. I think probably at one point in time, we understood it. I say we, but I think that there were societies that understood it better. I think the ancient Egyptians probably were the prime studiers of cycles, because first they started out looking at cycles because they relied on the Nile to flood, and it floods at a very regular time that's related to the rise of Sirius on the horizon. So they started looking at the stars. And I think that that's the reason why, they developed religion to such a great degree, and mythology, and the understanding of cycles and built what they were able to build and were able to control people in the way that they were because they understood these cycles. This is not a foreign language to a lot of the people who are in charge and who are running the show, like we're talking about with Soros. I think that this is just part of a cycle. I think that when at the same time you have this, what looks like this collapse, right? Society has never fully collapsed. This is in many ways, it's a zero-sum game. It's like a market. So you figure every time a market crashes, there are winners and losers.
Right.
You know, you look at that movie, The Big Short, right? That was a win.
Right.
If you short a market that's about to collapse, you win. And so I believe that what it is that we're doing right now when we're talking about this and we're looking for these ideas and we're exploring these ideas, exploring ideas like crypto, talking with others about, okay, well, we see this thing collapsing. What should we be doing? Where can we go? I truly believe that we are in many ways shorting the cultural market. We're shorting the idea that this country or this society or this culture as we know it is going to be existing the way that it is by the time we're dead.
Right. Well, and we're long a new future.
We're long a new future. Well, you should always be long a new future, right? But it's just now we've got to decide, like with which brings it full circle to the crypto, is we've got to figure out for ourselves which one we're willing to commit to and which one we're willing to back. Right. And in many ways, that's going to be the only thing that determines whether one succeeds or not, because you're absolutely right. Actually, the first words in my new book, in Self-Ownership, is it's a chapter that I started out with, and it's called A Concession. And what I say is, what's missing from all of this is I need to concede before I start, all human organizational systems work. They all work. At least for some people in the society, they all work, including the one we've got, no matter how bad you think it is. It fucking works.
Right.
There's a lot of abundance. The population is growing. If that's the only metric we have, it works. So we've just got to decide which one are we going to commit to because it's better in our minds. And then we make that individual choice. But until people wake up and see that they can, that's what you wake up to. You wake up and you say, oh, I can decide.
Right.
Oh, I can decide. And whichever one seems right to me is the one, so long as I'm not hurting other people, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. I think we're in exciting times. Things are happening. Or things are happening for you, too. I can't believe you're selling all those books. And how many people listen to your podcast? How many? What does that mean? How many books is that?
It's about 100 books.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Because
I'm selling them for $25 a pop, bro.
And you get the whole thing.
Get the whole thing.
How cool is that? I need to sell stuff. I don't sell anything yet.
Yeah, you do.
I'm terrible.
If you want to sell something, if you figure out something to sell, I'll hook you up with because I've put together this payment processing system that works really, really good.
Really?
And I can set you up with it, dude. I'll help you out with it.
Oh, cool. Gosh, it's great having friends like you.
There you go. I've been told that a few times this week.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm just
trying to help people along. You know what I mean? Which again, I think that's part of it. Is it's like when you decide that you're going to commit to one of these ideals, when you're going to commit to something, like, of course, help other people to get on board. The more, the merrier. Like then you're winning.
Yeah.
Like you're here. You're invested in IOTA. You're talking about IOTA. You want other people to buy IOTA. Of course. Right. Like it's great that we can take this power back.
Right.
And I think that we're celebrating, as for so many years, we've been looking and saying, oh, here are these masters of the universe who are able to control the banks and all of this. And it's like, bro, we're the new Rothschilds if we choose to be.
Right. And you know what? I take all their stuff, the New World Order. Well, we're the New World Order. Order out of chaos. It's great. We should embrace chaos because we can create something. If we realize our power, then, a new culture can arise, and hopefully the right values, the values you talk about with agorism, I mean, they're natural too. It's really natural law that we need to embrace and then play that out in our lives, and doing stuff like you. Only selling your book. You're going to sell a lot fewer books, but you enrich a lot of people's lives and maybe their bank accounts.
But I'll tell you, I'm selling fewer books, but I need to sell fewer books.
Right, you don't have to
make the same amount of money. Like that's when you really weigh it out. you start to figure out that like, oh, it's the idea behind a boutique. It's the idea behind like a haute couture designer, right? Where they sell one celebrity, one dress to wear to the Oscars, and that pays for the entire fucking year.
Right.
As opposed to mass produced sweatshop in China. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with me and, my escort business. I'm the highest paid guy, but I only have to do a weekend to pay for all of my expenses for the month and have some left over.
Right.
And I think that people need to start changing their minds. That's how we get out of this idea of like the corporatocracy and all of that. It's like, no, you can do it yourself. Like, just be alone. It's just you. There's enough technology. Take on as much as you can take on. I mean, look at us.
Right.
Producing what we produce. Like, to be able to do what we're doing 10 years ago, bro, it would have been millions of dollars for us to just have this conversation and broadcast it out.
Oh, it'd be impossible. That's why, you empower people with what you're going to help me out if I ever get my shit together. I empower people to make videos, so they can have a voice, because we live in an age where you can do it. Nobody can stop me. As much as they want to shut down what you and I do, they can't stop it.
That's right.
There's no way. And it's easy, with just a little bit of capital. And yeah, the thing about, it's taking your work back. Once you start to get out of the system and you take you realize, wow, I don't have to work as much.
That's right.
To make the same amount. And then I have more time to do other things that can be productive or fruitful in other ways. It just totally changes the way you think. I mean, yeah, I have to make, if I made 1/5 pretty much of what I was making before, just from donations and doing this,
right,
I'm kind of in the same boat almost, and
people don't think that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. If I look back and I look at my expenses of, making 6 figures doing software development, and I really look back and it's like, okay, well, I could not really choose where I lived, living in LA, right? Like, there was only a certain distance away that I could live. So that determines what it's going to cost me for either rent or mortgage. I'm going to be commuting. I've got gas that I'm dealing with. I've got whatever other expenses. I'm eating out for lunch. Yeah. I'm doing all of these. You start adding those up, and then the taxes that are coming out, right? And you look and you're like, oh, dude, I could really be at home, like making a couple grand a month, and literally be making the same amount of money and be working like a fifth or less, a tenth of what I'm working. And when people realize that, but the only way to realize it, this is what I understand now. And it's really started to become clear to me in doing this project, particularly with the book. It's not enough to intellectually get it. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people intellectually can get it. You can run the numbers, you can show it to them. It's not enough. You have to embody it. You have to experience it. It's like you have to make that first cryptocurrency purchase.
Right.
I was talking with my producer Christian on my show yesterday about people's experience. Everybody will know this one. The experience with Uber. Mm-hmm. Right? You could tell somebody about Uber. You could do until they've walked it through themselves. Watched the car show up on their phone. Gotten in, gotten out. Gave the person the star. That's the moment when they're like, oh,
right.
Oh, until somebody really gets on the internet, until somebody had really gotten on Facebook, until somebody had really gotten on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever. You could explain Snapchat all day, but until some chick gets to sit down and do the little dog filter,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's when it's like, oh,
right.
And so that's what we need to be pushing for.
Right.
Like you say, it's like for somebody to really get their webcam set up, get their broadcaster set up, do a video, even if it's a 2-minute video, put it on YouTube, see some people get on there, see some people thumbs up it, see some comments. Then they say, oh, I can do this. I can actually do this.
Right. That's why I tell people, just make one. Literally just make one video and fuck up and try to fail. That's the thing I talk about is fearlessness. Cause that's the one, it's just a fear that's keeping you in the system. Yes. Because you just can't imagine things without it. You have to overcome that with your first steps, and it's amazing, whether even if you're doing way worse off, like living with your dad, doing a show out of a garage. But my life is, because I'm free.
That's the key, man. What we think we need and what we actually need are huge. There's a what is the guy's name? I want to say it's Gerard. He wrote this book, Desire, Deceit, and the Novel. It's a great little like literary critique. It's a weird little book, but what he says is in the book, it's philosophically what he's getting at is this idea that we don't actually know what we want or what we desire, that all of our desires come from other people. And he has this idea that basically what happens is, and it's clear once you see it, and he's a literary critic, but it could go for, this is an older book from like the 60s, but it could go to movies or whatever. First, you see somebody who has something. Then you take your desires, you put them onto them. You say, I want that thing. And then you resent that person for having the thing that now you desire because you feel like they're preventing you from getting what it is that they have, even though you only desire it because they have it. And I think, isn't that weird? But it's so true, right? Like I say it and you're like, oh yeah, that's totally right. When you step back a minute, you're like, oh shit, how much of this have I put on myself?
Right.
How much of this do I really even want?
Right.
You know, and it's mo money, mo problems. It's like, I know this having, you know, been the, look, I just before I was here went and got a salad and I'm standing in line to get a salad at Rachel's Kitchen. And some dude turns around and goes, oh, Vin, oh, I know, we're Gigolos. Oh my God, I can't believe, because our studio's in Henderson. Why are you in Henderson? I thought, and it's just somebody from like, they're from like North Carolina, some couple. Right. And I'm like, do I really want this still?
So, right.
Like,
right.
Is there
right.
anything of value? And luckily I'm looking halfway decent today, but like, what if I'm just out looking shitty? You know what I mean?
Right.
Do I really want to sit and have this conversation before I get my little Cobb salad? You know what I mean?
Right.
No, I don't want that. I want to walk around anonymous. But yet so many people want that celebrity. Right.
It's like me leaving my job. It's like, I think about going to a car show and talking to people about again, and I'm like, why would I want this? Like, they offered me my job back at my old thing, and they were like, and I was thinking about it because they said I would only have to come in for 3 months, but then they were trying to pitch me, oh, the last guy here was making $15,000 a month, and you know, maybe, and you'll probably want to stay. And I was like, what the hell would I want that for? Right. You know what I mean? It's not worth it. You know, it's not worth it. And anyway, being able to or just giving up. I remember I gave away all my stuff. I remember doing it. I just realized,
dude,
I was like,
that's so good.
It's tying me down, you know?
That's so good. Like, paring back, I was just going through my storage, and it's like, well, I didn't go through. I have a storage space in LA that I haven't touched in 5 years.
Right. Isn't that typical of these times?
Why do we do this? Like, why is this a cultural thing? Why is that fucking okay? Right. I should feel completely ashamed of myself that I have this, and it's crap. I mean, it's garbage at this point. You know what I mean?
Right. Why
do we do?
Why does everyone have a storage unit? You know, why is that the age we live in? Why do we all accept that as a thing? You know, we don't need all that stuff. No. You hardly need anything.
We prove that we don't. If you don't touch it in 5 years, you don't need it.
Yeah, right.
Like, it's not even, you know what I mean? You're just a hoarder at that point. Like, you're a hoarder who's managed to not hoard in your own home. You're paying someone else to hoard it for you.
I was bad, man.
No, we need so much less. But what we do need is and where the self-sufficiency really lies is it's inside of us, man. When we clear that space out of our lives, when we clear up that time, the things that we can accomplish, as is clear from what you're doing and, you know, from what I've been able to do in the last couple of years, it's just so true, man. It's so totally true.
It's great. I love it. I like the times we're in.
I do too. They're hopeful times. If you choose to let them be hopeful, man, they're hopeful times.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. As long as you're not afraid, you know, then embrace it and then look for opportunities, because there are going to be tons of them for small businesses, for anyone with capital. If you have capital going into this thing, you know, which I don't, but maybe crypto will work out. Then you can do stuff. There will be opportunities that weren't there before. The opportunities, it's not going to be about, you know, losing out, but actually being able to gain because of the destruction of this terrible paradigm we're in, you know. So,
agreed.
Man, awesome to have you on the show. Do you have anything else you want to talk about, or?
No, dude, this is really, really cool. I always like coming on. We always have great conversations.
Isn't it
but
funny? Off the air, we
was...
have funny conversations.
I know we have the weirdest conversations over direct message. Like, what the fuck is happening here?
I was happy you still decided to come on. I was going to show you some video of Elon landing his rockets. I feel bad that I can't do that today. I'll show it to you. Maybe I'll share it to you.
I can't see the video here.
I'll share it with you. It's probably for the best because we don't want to. We agree on practically everything. Anyway, thanks for coming on, man. You can catch Vin's show on youtube.com/Vin Armani. Your podcast, I assume, is under Vin Armani. You can just search that anywhere.
VinArmani.com or just iTunes and Stitcher. You
just search Vin Armani, right? Armani. Yeah, same with here, Lift the Veil. And your book is at VinArmani.com/self-ownership. Self-ownership. And I recommend
but if you go to VinArmani.com, just right on the top menu, it'll say buy self-ownership. You can just buy it right there.
I recommend you do that.
I'm gonna send you a copy, and I'm also gonna send you. You're gonna have to bless me with your physical address, but I'm also gonna send you, because I just put up the digital copy and the audiobook. The audiobook is sick. It's read by John Loth, who, if people haven't heard of him, his voice is just like, it's like baritone Buddha. So I'm gonna send you the links right after we get off, and you can check out the audiobook. It's great, and check out the digital copy.
Oh, too. Awesome! Thanks, man.
Absolutely,
you're the coolest. All right.
No, you're the coolest.
All right, man. I'll let you go. All right, see ya.
I'll talk with you soon.
Bye.
Later.
Man, it's funny. Yeah, he thought I was crazy. Wow, cool. Good show, right? He talks so I don't have to the whole time, and he's good, and he talks about real stuff. Wow, I feel lonely almost now. I almost feel lonely. That was a good show. Oh, but I can still take calls. It's been an hour and a half. Well, no, this was the Vin Armani show. So I'm going to leave it up as it is in a slightly shorter version so everybody can hear Vin Armani and tune into it. So, I mean, it was the show he was on. I'll take calls, but let me make a few announcements. Okay, so this host, I've said it during the interview, I'm planning to go to the rallies. There are 2 this weekend. Free speech / white supremacist / Antifa rallies. One in San Francisco on the 26th, one in Oakland on the 27th. So I'm planning to go there because I want to see like what that guy talked about at the beginning with buses showing up with people on the same bus. Or the same buses, one behind the other. I want to see if I can see who the agitators are, like what's going on there, because I feel like we need an independent, non-ideological eye in those scenes. So I'm planning to do that. It's difficult because I'm also planning to go to the UK. I'm literally ready to buy tickets, but I just need to raise enough money. A few people already stepped up, and people stepped up on Patreon and stuff. But PayPal.me/lifttheveil is the best way to do it. And I need it more than ever for all the things I'm doing. I don't have that many listeners anymore, I guess, well, overall because of the subscriber thing and everything. So I'm just asking. I am planning to do these things. I think will be huge. I don't need a lot. I have a place where I stay up there, but it's like a 4.5 hour drive and stuff, and I have to eat all this stuff, regular expenses, and I don't raise money much. I don't actually ask that hard much. I'm gonna ask kind of hard now for people to step up who haven't before, or just who can and want to see this kind of coverage, because I'm going to try to bring you some unique stuff. I don't think many people are going to be on the ground at these events, any independent people. So I think people will really value that. And then the trip to the UK, as far as the child sex abuse investigations, maybe I have to go into all the things that are going on, but there are a lot of things going on over there. That BBC journalist who had tried to expose Jimmy Savile just died at 51 years old of a stroke, 51 or 52. So there's news there. It's not necessarily the safest thing for me to do. And again, there are a number of expenses. I got my passport. That was $200. I just saw my doctor yesterday about this other story. I think tomorrow, and that was $150. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell you guys the cure for cancer and almost all disease. So that's the big story I was working on. I wanted to talk to my doctor first. I did that yesterday. What's up, Dad? He's all up in my business today. I wish he wouldn't interrupt my big interview with Vin and everything, making noise. So anyway, a lot of expenses. I'm trying. I just don't like having to take it for my dad, which I kind of have been. So that's all huge stuff. And then beyond that, the ECD Ranch up in Washington State. That's a whole other thing. So I just want to be able to do these things because I think they're huge value propositions. I think they're going to pay off big time in terms of value to you guys and to anybody else who happens to see them. I think a bunch of people are going to tune in for coverage of those rallies for sure. And, I'm willing to go in there because I've already been there. I've been to Berkeley twice already. Already been to San Luis Obispo twice, although that didn't get violent. And covered those things. And I know the characters there. And I'm interested in seeing who I've already seen before. So that's, if it's a smaller amount or you want to become a subscriber on Patreon, that's cool too, because that's always awesome because I'll get it every month. I can count on it. And thank you everyone who signed up for that. That's where old episodes are archived, especially controversial ones, not episodes like this one, which will remain because I had a guest. And of course I want to be respectful and show everybody who wants to see it that. And I take cryptocurrency too. And Doshi gets fed. Right, Doshi? Good show today. Great show. You weren't on camera as much. He looks good. So that's what's going on. Everything's happening. Everything's happening right here on this channel. Stuff you're never going to see anywhere else. And I believe it's because we're changing the world. I really do. People like Vin too. You see, things are changing. Okay. So please tune in tomorrow. I believe it will be tomorrow that I'm going to present you no bullshit. The cure for cancer, HIV, autism, chronic fatigue. It's being suppressed. The doctors you hear about who are getting killed, it may be over this. I thought I would be possibly in danger talking about it, but there are other people talking about it out there, but it's not widely known. So that's for tomorrow, and I'm deadly serious about it. It's a serious thing. I'm pretty. I think is a huge deal that isn't being talked about. So that's what I'm going to try to talk about tomorrow. That's why I had to, that's why I went and saw my doctor about it, because he's an expert in some of the stuff that I was going to talk about. And now that I've done that, I can make the presentation on it. So tomorrow or Thursday for that. And there might be something else huge that I need to reveal if I can get my facts together in time. Something that's going on this weekend, starting this weekend. Huge occult ritual in the desert. So if I can find some information to expose that the way it properly needs to be exposed, then we might see a show on that too, right before it happens. So big everything. I just can't believe it. The stuff that's coming into my lap. And I think it was a great show today too, indicative of how things are going. And you guys create it. You create this show in your head with your spirit, as above, so below, as below, so above, or however it goes. People say that's satanic. It's not. On earth as it is in heaven. It's Christian too. Everybody knows that. So do the following things that are suggested based on my research. Vitamin D3, like 5 to 10,000 IUs a day. if you're not in the sun a lot. But even if you, but take that. My doctor is on the vitamin D council, or he runs it actually. He created it. But it's really good. And it's related to this cure for cancer thing and autism and chronic fatigue and herpes, HIV. Anyway, I'll tell you about it. Take that. Magnesium, from what I understand, I take that. Black seed oil. I'm telling you, that's good. I mean, I find it different. And those are the three things that I think supplementally I can recommend to make you feel better. Because when you feel better, the show's better. I feel better when you do. You now co-create the universe I live in, and vice versa. I also thought you up in a way, but you thought me up in a way, which I am forever grateful for. You understand what's going on? We're changing the whole freaking world. You are. So bear that responsibility carefully and tune into my live show often, except Saturdays, and then sporadically during the week. 1:11 p.m. Pacific time, 4:11 p.m. on the eastern coast of America, 9:11 p.m. in London, England, and I just 6:11 in the morning for my dedicated audience down in Australia. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow. Cheers.